All right, welcome everybody to Fridays Are for Founders, a weekly event that we put on through the DEC Network to bring experienced entrepreneurs to the forefront to talk about their business, their backgrounds, what sorts of things they're going through, and how they're managing the pandemic of COVID-19. Today, I'm super excited that we get to have Nick Clark with us from Common Desk. And we get to hear about some of his experiences. And I think it's going to be a unique, really interesting topic for a lot of you to talk through, because Common Desk is a co-working or shared space. And so a lot of people are wondering, what's the future of commercial real estate look like? What's the future of co-working look like? And we've got the best person in the country to come in and talk about that. So I'm also excited about having Nick here, because he's been a friend for several years, and because about 6 months ago, the DEC Network announced a partnership with Common Desk, where we are have our headquarters there, and we get to help put together programs, events across the network. Right now, they're more virtual than anything, but we are excited to get back and continue to do the work that we started to do when the partnership began. So, Nick, thank you so much for being here. I don't like to give people what they want to share about themselves. Otherwise, it gets embarrassingly long, and you sit there and blush while I say a bunch of nice things about you, which I'm happy to do at the end if we have time. But welcome, and please introduce yourself to everyone, and we'll kick this hour off together.
Trey, you were cutting out there for a second. I missed the last part, but I'm guessing you were giving me a chance.
Go ahead. The floor is
Awesome.
yours.
Well, I'm Nick Clark. I'm the founder and CEO of Common Desk. Thank you for having me on today. This is a lot of fun, as you guys would imagine, and I'm sure for everybody out there that's listening, this has certainly been one heck of a year so far. It's been an interesting one to navigate a company through. To give you guys a little background on Common Desk, I started Common Desk here in Dallas in the Deep Ellum neighborhood about 8 years ago. I came to co-working from a commercial real estate background, which has been helpful all 8 years of running the company, because I think it gave me a little bit of insight on really what companies, both big and small, are looking for as it pertains to office space. And something that was really interesting back in that time, which I think it's even more so the case now, is that companies need something that is flexible, something that is in a lot of ways turnkey, and in some ways just fun and engaging. And that is usually not what real estate is. But that is what we set out to create in 2012 when Common Desk started, and that's still what we're working on today. And now we have 17 locations that are across DFW, Houston, Austin, and in the scariest way possible, we're growing into North Carolina right now. And so we're, even through this pandemic and everything that's happening, we still have the gas pedal down. We're continuing to grow, and we've been working on just right-sizing the company, our offering, and everything we do to kind of prepare for what the next era of co-working, the next era of Common Desk and office is going to look like. So,
well, and I'd also like to introduce to everyone someone who doesn't need an introduction, but that's Delanie Majors, who is the co-host and moderator of this time together. So I'll let her ask some questions as well. But what I really wanted to kick things off with today was, Nick, was explain to me how you saw the trend of co-working before most other people did, and what sort of gave you the idea that this is something that's going to be here to stay, and willing for you to make a pretty big pivot in your life to focus on becoming an entrepreneur and doing that full time, and putting all your chips on the table for something like shared space, which has now become almost commoditized across the world. There's so much of it. You were on the front end of it. What gave you the idea or the courage to step out and do something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It all happened from me failing at something else, which is kind of interesting. I actually quit my job in commercial real estate to go start a third-party leasing and management company that focused on more of your creative office assets. After 3 or 4 months of working on it and it going absolutely nowhere, I stumbled upon another co-working operator and really kind of walked into a co-working space for the first time in my life. And I thought it was magical. I mean, it just really captivated my heart, captivated my attention. At the very same time, the global co-working conference just happened to be down in Austin like 1 week after that. And so I jumped in my car, went down there to the conference, just fell in love with this like tight knit hippie community of co-working entrepreneurs, which is weird, but that's what it was in 2011. And just decided that really a lot of things that I wanted to bring to office could be accomplished through co-working, which again, kind of going back to, it was really just creating a product that was fun, fast, and flexible. And as soon as I realized that, co-working could offer all of that, I just had to kind of size it all down to, at that time, which was like a 3,000 to 5,000 square foot space. But it gave me a chance to go embark upon this journey of entrepreneurship and to really do something that's been a life mission of mine, which is simply to make work fun for people.
Well, go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say, how long, or are you at a place where you felt like you got it right? Like, I'm sure when you started, you had certain ideas on how you wanted the aesthetics to be, and you wanted to maximize the use of the space and making sure that it's got enough room for everybody you need, but also, that feel of, that it's your own space, but it's also a part of a shared space. I mean, do you feel like at this point you've got kind of the model down for what each space looks like and how you develop it, and how long did it take you to get there?
I say that I feel like I still don't have it right. But I also think that that's probably what drives me to keep coming to the office every day and trying to figure it out. We got extremely lucky with our very first location being in Deep Ellum. Trey, you walked the space, I think, before we even opened it. It looks like we had a crystal ball and that we knew Deep Ellum was going to become what it is today. But to be honest with you, it was some of the cheapest rent in town at that time, where you could like secure space for $10 to $12 gross a square foot. I just felt like, man, there's a few bars that our members can walk to. It's close to downtown, and it's the cheapest space I can possibly rent. And so hopefully I can get this right and turn a profit. But it ended up working out extremely well. And so, to be honest with you, instead of getting things right in the beginning, we probably just got a little lucky. And we're still working today on trying to figure out what right looks like. But hopefully it's that pursuit that'll get us to a point where, we're continuing to offer a great product to the end user kind of across the country here pretty soon.
I'd always rather be lucky than good. So I'm glad that you guys kicked that off. Delanie, I'll hand it to you for a second.
Yeah. It's funny, the two things you said, that little bit of luck and also feeling like you never have it fully right and that you're still working on it, is what I feel like we've heard a lot of entrepreneurs say just on Fridays are for founders, or just being at the DEC. I feel like that's a constant with entrepreneurs. And I think that's, what really helps make a successful entrepreneur. But I'd love to talk a little bit about the actual business model of Common Desk. It is different than the normal co-working business model, and that is part of what makes it so unique and has made it successful. So I'd love to kind of get into that a little bit so our viewers can really kind of understand why exactly Common Desk is different than your typical co-working space.
Awesome. Yeah. So we differ on a few different angles. One, back in 2016, we became the first co-working company in the nation that really turned it into a B2B2C business. And the fact that instead of signing leases with landlords, Common Desk now signs partnership agreements with landlords to where really the landlord owns the location and all the assets of the location. We apply our brand, we apply our operating strategy, and to the end user, to the member, they would never really know the difference of the framework of the structure between us and the landlord. But it makes a big difference on how we grow the business and how we align ourselves with a landlord. And so our deal structure is very different than most other co-working operators. And then on the B2C side with our end users, we've always aimed at being very turnkey with our services, not nickel and diming our customers to continue to improve the product, but for them not to feel like we're always upping rates on them, so to speak. We have unlimited hours as it pertains to, conference room bookings. We even have an allotment for you to be able to print for free. We try to make for the entrepreneur, for the end user, a product where if they're trying to get a business off the ground, they know without a shadow of a doubt they can pay Common Desk $250 a month. They're going to get a Class A office offering at a Class A address that they're very proud of, and then they don't really have to worry about anything else as it pertains to their real estate requirements. Then they can focus on their business. And I would say that one other differentiating factor for us is we're a Southern company, and we really take a lot of pride with the Southern hospitality that we're offering inside of our spaces. Again, I said that one of my life missions has been just to make work fun, which is a weird life mission, I know, but we like to have fun at work. We want people to want to be here. We want people to realize that, hey, you spend most of your life at work, which sucks. So we're going to try to make it a little better for you. And we think we do that a little better than some of those Manhattan companies that have come down in our territory and try to take a piece of the pie.
I can definitely, as somebody, we were talking about how the DEC has kind of moved into Common Desk and has a space there now. I've been in a lot of great co-working spaces, but the hospitality Common Desk gives is always the best, always so great. All y'all staff is so kind. The coffee's great, which is also a great perk. But I mean, that really rings true, and it's very easy to see as somebody who works there and somebody who's a part of that community. So that's been really cool to see. I'd love to kind of get into that growth stage as we continue this conversation. I know you say you feel like you don't have it perfect right now. You haven't perfected it. So you're obviously still growing, and y'all are going up north. What during this stage of growth, what has worked, or what's been some lessons learned or some challenges you've faced? Any entrepreneur is going to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably the hardest thing that we've had to figure out, and we're still figuring out, is how do we bring the brand to other cities and still have kind of that homegrown vibe that we've been able to organically grow in Dallas. And we are still for sure searching for the right answers there, but we have taken inspiration from other companies and even other industries that we admire. Some of you guys that know me really well know that I grew up in the Chick-fil-A system. My dad is an owner and operator of Chick-fil-A's in Mesquite and Forney, and so he's been doing that since '87. So we've taken a lot of inspiration from Chick-fil-A as a company, because I think they've gotten growth right. You go to any Chick-fil-A across the nation, and you can depend on the fact that you're going to get a very similar product. You're going to get people that freakishly love serving you that product, like in a weird way, and then they're going to tell you my pleasure after they hand you your food. And they've done an incredible job. That's one example of a company that was able to put together a structure to where they've got basically principals everywhere throughout a market that take ownership in what they are doing. I think if we look at our own industry within commercial real estate, Stream Realty is a great example of a company that's doing things right. They're a Dallas-based company. They have grown leaps and bounds, especially over this last cycle, into a lot of other southern markets. And they do something similar. They'll send a partner out to a market that has skin in the game and then helps to grow a brand in a particular market. And so Common Desk is working on something similar with these new markets we're growing into. One, you're not going to see us in LA anytime soon. You're not going to see us in Manhattan. You're not going to see us in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to stick to the South. And we're going to try to go own a region first and foremost. And so the Southeast has been really the area that we've decided that we are interested in. And within every single market that we go into in the future, we're going to go find a partner that is truly a principle in the business that helps us to grow the brand in the right way and really love on our employees, love on our members in those local markets. Because for us, it has nothing to do with being big. I really do not care at all about the size of the company. We want to just continue offering something great to the end users and to our landlord partners.
I love that approach and the way that you look at your customers and the way you look at your partners and the B2B2C model. As you mentioned, it's unique. I don't think anybody else is doing anything like that, or they weren't before you started doing it. Everybody likes to copy something after it starts working. Talk a little bit about, if you will, what COVID-19 has done to you and to your spaces in terms of your business. I mean, as tenants, we get updates all the time. You guys communicate very effectively. That's one of the things we've talked about on this program, is the importance of continuing to connect with your customers, develop a communication method, and making sure you are maintaining that relationship. And you guys have done that awesome with us. But what has this meant to you guys, and how are things changing, and how are you dealing with that, and what sorts of things are you doing to get back to where we were before?
Yeah, absolutely. COVID, I will say this, and I think this happened for a lot of companies. It felt like we got blindsided by COVID, even though in the news we were reading about it for months before it was actually here. And so probably none of us should have been blindsided by it, but we were. There was even I shouldn't even bring this up because I don't want anybody to go back and search, but I think CoStar reached out to me it was just a couple of weeks before COVID had hit, and asked, "Hey, what are you guys doing to prepare for COVID?" And I'll be honest, I had no good answers at that time. We just weren't thinking about it enough, and I think that happened to a lot of companies. And then when it hit very hard, and we got to work. And so I would say that during that time period of March, April, May, it was the craziest time period of my entire career thus far. I mean, me and my staff are working nonstop on, Trey, you're referencing some of the communication, on getting the right communication out, quickly changing the way we operate our spaces across the portfolio, and just making sure that people stay safe. I think the most dangerous thing with COVID as a brand is all it takes is one mistake, right? And one mistake can have a very negative impact on a brand. And obviously, I mean, we're dealing with people's lives when it comes to a pandemic. And very much so, we feel responsible for people, obviously, when they're inside of our spaces. And so we took the approach of saying, hey, let's put safety first and foremost with every single one of our members, with our staff members. And then from there, the other realization was that, hey, we're going to have to close down our spaces for a while, and that's okay. What we do is we provide resources and we provide community for entrepreneurs, and we can do all of that even if we don't have the real estate. And so we got to work on, firing up this work from home membership, and we switched all of our events onto Zoom and weird video calls like this one. And we had to just change the way we were operating, but in the weirdest of ways, it was fun because it allowed us to develop this new kind of online community for the members that really partake in what we were doing. We were able to get to know them so much better. And then just, through the obstacle and through the hardship, I think our staff grew a little closer. And in the weirdest of ways, it kind of boosted morale because we were all on Zoom calls at 11 p.m. at night, drinking a beer and trying to figure out what the heck we were going to do the next day. And so it was an interesting time. But I mean, we took the approach of saying, hey, and we're still doing this today, but saying, hey, let's put safety first. And then let's try our best to not lose members by just simply giving them a lot of different choices and a lot of different offerings. And we didn't press anybody on, hey, you have to pay your membership. Hey, you can or you cannot get this certain discount. We just simply said, let's keep everybody. Yeah, we'll loosen the rules where we have to. Let's allow for everybody to continue on as a part of our community. And as soon as things go back to some resemblance of normal, we'll get back to making sure that revenue is where it needs to be. And it by all means has not been perfect, but we are still here today. I will say that I personally think that Common Desk as a company is in a healthier state in July than we were in February. And that is something I'm really, really proud of.
Wow. That's that's not all companies can say that. So that's very exciting for you guys, and good on y'all for finding the best way to pivot and, doing that in an efficient way. And as, even Trey was saying, the communications, they're there. And you were mentioning that you even got closer with some of your tenants and people that are a part of the Common Desk community. How do you think you have kept up those relationships and made them even stronger? How has Common Desk been working to keep this virtual community alive? Because that's important in the entrepreneurial space.
It's been one of the ways that we've been able to even save some of our own jobs within Common Desk, because obviously with all of this space shut down for a little while, over half the company didn't have as much to do, right? I mean, we're essentially a hospitality management company, so if you have nothing to manage, things go a little quiet. But we're able to, reallocate the resources of those employees and, really take a very personal one-on-one approach with our tenants, our members, our landlord partners. And, that hands-on approach certainly took a lot of time and is still taking a lot of time, but it was a good way to, again, deeply develop and further develop relationships within our circle. And, to hopefully even, find some new partners, new members through all of it. And so I'm very grateful, honestly, that we were kind of the size that we were going into this year, which, again, going back to lucky, we just kind of got lucky there, that it, the timing of this pandemic and everything hit when it did for our company, because we were just big enough to have kind of the resources to get through it, but also still small enough to take a very personal one-on-one approach with everybody, with that includes me with my staff with our members, us with our landlord partners. And so I think that one-on-one approach is really what has been very impactful for us up to this point.
You mentioned the new work from home membership. Are there you guys are releasing or going to even after we go back to work, and any projections on when we will go back to work?
Well, I'll say this. I think the work from home membership has been a very successful program up to this point. We'll probably roll it into a new virtual membership offering that we're kind of working on for 2021. That'll, we've always had like mailbox services, things of that nature, but now we're seeing a need for saying, hey, it's a lower price point virtual membership where you get access to the office maybe a couple of times a month, but more importantly, you're getting access to the address, to the community, to the events that we're putting on, things of that nature. And so we are working on kind of what the future of that work from home membership looks like as we're heading back to work. I also think that might be a good time just to talk through, how is COVID going to impact the future of the office and the future of work?
That's my favorite question of the day, so I can't go ahead and go into that.
Well, I'll throw this out there before I say anything. That my real answer is I don't have a clue.
Right.
But I'm going to use my best educated guess here on just kind of what we're seeing and the data that we are able to compile on this so far. And I mean, one thing that we see, and we can even see this, in times when we've had economic uncertainty, back in the financial recession of the late 2000s, even the dot-com bust. Anytime there's uncertainty in the market, companies no longer want to sign long-term leases, right? And so flexibility does become that much more important. And this time around, I think what COVID has done is it's really just projecting, commercial real estate, office demand, office supply about 5 to 10 years into the future, because of how everybody is adopting to these new workflows, these new strategies. I mean, the three of us are on this broadcasted Facebook call right now, and we're all, I mean, Trey, I don't know where you are. You're in your car. Are you on family vacation?
It's headed to family vacation.
Trey's on vacation right now and still getting work done, but it's just showing that workflow, work process, the way we work is continuing to change, right? But I think some people are freaking out and thinking, "Oh my gosh, is this the death of the office?" And I think absolutely. I mean, I was at home for a few months, and for my marriage's sake, I had to get back to the office. And I think we absolutely need to connect with other employees, to manage the business, to recruit. So I think the question becomes, it's not is the office wrong, what does the new office do? I think with the fact that we can work from anywhere these days, you then have to ask yourself, why go to the office? What brings you to the office? And that's where I'm a big believer that with the office of the future, you can't be this crappy commodity that looks like every other office. It needs to be something that is amenitized, that has the fancy Zoom room software so that you can have a great video call, or it has something that is going to make your meeting with this new client that much more impactful. And it needs to be able to do all of that while still being financially feasible and not tying you down to a 5 to 15 year term on a 30-page lease document. And so I truly do believe all those things, which is great because it's kind of the product that we are offering. And like I said, I think we've got a long ways to go on even kind of right sizing that and getting it right for what the future is going to hold and what future demand is going to look like. But I think what COVID might do is finally kill office as a commodity, which it's always been a commodity. Like, if it's a commodity and your office is the exact same boring office as everybody else's, and you're showing up to this like cubicle farm and like it's uninspiring, that is what I believe is dead. That is going to be dead for a lot of companies. I think companies are going to choose to have a smaller footprint that is more impactful, that can help them with pitching, with hiring, and with brand image, and maintaining all that while still staying lean and being agile for whatever the future may hold.
That makes sense. I think that's the heart of the pandemic, is that it changes every day, and you have this prediction today and then it might change tomorrow, but we've seen that as well. And Trey and I were talking about that. It's the need is going to be different, and the future of work will be different. And it has been this transition into how do you work from home, and okay, let's roll people in on certain days. Let's do something a little different. So it's interesting you say that. I guess at this point, again, the pandemic is changing every day. In what ways are you looking at it differently now and facing it differently now than in the beginning? In the beginning, it was this panic, oh my goodness, and then it kind of simmered out, and then there's been a spike. How has your strategy changed, and how do you continue to face it every day despite the constant changes? And now look at it now that we're here in July.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head there a little bit, and the fact that during that first month or two, and I've spoken to this just a little bit already, but I mean, there was a panic in the room a bit because we weren't prepared, and I think that was a lot of companies that just weren't prepared for how impactful and how crazy this pandemic has been, and how quickly things did shift on us. And so at least for the first 30 days, it felt like all we were doing was reacting and playing defense. which was weird because we're a company full of offensive players, and so none of us really enjoyed having to just play defense for a ton, and we certainly do not enjoy just being reactionary on our decision making and how we're going about things. But that, and being that it was all brand new and there's no textbook written on how we go. Hey, we just got a note that somebody says I no longer have audio. I don't know if that's can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are we good?
Yeah.
So yes, we were being extremely reactionary on how we were dealing with things in the beginning. I think a lot of companies were. The way things have changed for us over the last few months is once we got the company in a new stable position, and once we felt like we had our operating procedures down and we were to a point where the staff was safe, members were safe, our new kind of cadence with reporting and communication to members and all of that was down. We really started to kind of move on to kind of figure out how can we turn this adversity into an advantage, for the company, and what is COVID going to do for the future of office, where we can start preparing for now, so that we can capitalize on it as soon as things do go back to normal. And so over the last couple of months, it has been fun to be able to kind of go back on the offense a bit and to start working on new product, a new framework to where we believe it's going to be extremely successful for the future. And one example of that would be, we think the demand on larger teams wanting flexible turnkey space is about to go through the roof. But it's going to look a little different from what we believe it looked like in the past. We just went through like one of the bougiest market cycles we've ever seen. And I believe we might be at the tail end of that. If not, it could be over. But what that means is that, people haven't been as price sensitive 2 or 3 years, especially your well-funded startups, your Fortune 500 type companies. And so co-working hasn't really had to evolve its model too much for the larger teams. You're getting a little bit of economies of scale on price point per desk, but not much, and so, the price point is high if we talk about on a per square footage basis. We're also really packing people into space. I think everybody knows that the trade out of co-working is that, man, you get all these cool amenities, and on a price per head basis, it actually makes a lot of sense. And the one thing that you're giving up is space. It's you're typically, in a little bit tighter quarters than you would be in a traditional office. And so one thing we've really been working on is how do we go deliver a product to the market where we can spread people out, we can deliver the product at or around, what would be traditional office rent, but we can still provide turnkey services, community activation, and flexible space to people. And I think we're going to have something pretty soon that's going to be pretty exciting for the market that we're ready to debut. So that'll be fun.
Oh, there, my mute button finally worked. I'm back. So sorry about that. That's really fascinating, and I think it's important. And I wanted to sort of speak to Delanie. You brought this up a little bit, but this idea of what I'm hearing companies talk about now, and this may be part of the new products that you're talking about, is that people are like, look, I can work from home forever. That's fine for me. I like that, but I also like to go back into the office. And so this concept of rotation and saying, all right, we're going to have, we've got 25 employees, we're going to have 10 or 12 in on this day, 10 or 12 on this day, so forth and so on. Is that something that exists or could easily exist during in your current business model, or would you have to modify something to do that? And is that even something that you're hearing that's a need in the market?
Yeah, we are hearing that, and we are talking through that as well as a company, and the fact that, our company is doing that. We are only coming into the office once or twice a week max. And so I do think you're going to see Common Desk as well as other co-working operators roll out even a dedicated team space. You've got a part-time offering, to where in the past the only real part-time offering at Common Desk has been for shared space members, right? Because they can pick and choose whenever the heck they want to come in. But if you take a dedicated office, that dedicated office is your team's office. But, I definitely see a path forward with saying, hey, like, you can choose if you want to take this office on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or on Tuesday and Thursday. And our team is going to come through and make sure that it is sanitized, cleaned, and perfectly prepped and ready for the next team that's coming in the following day to use it as their dedicated space for that given day. Because I'm with you on that, Trey. I do think a lot of companies are going to give optionality to their employees, or have already instituted or are going to institute a indefinite work from home policy, which is, again, something that Common Desk has done for our corporate staff. And we rolled out a new work from home policy that it involves a Zoom dress code, which is kind of hilarious. But it's we've thought through this, and this isn't just for the pandemic. We believe that is the future of how we are going to work as a company.
Well, you talked about this before. You kind of mentioned the idea of early on, you and your team were staying up at 11 o'clock at night, having beers, trying to figure out what to do. One of the things we've been asking entrepreneurs during this process is there an importance that needs to be placed upon the idea of actually giving your employees hours, making sure that they aren't overworking because they're at home? How do you address that inside your own culture, your employees during this time?
You cut out there for a second, Trey, but I think I got the gist of your question. The overwork and burnout has 100% been an issue at Common Desk this year so far. And so one thing that we realized that needed to be addressed about a month and a half ago was, for a few years now, we've had a very flexible vacation policy for corporate staff members, to where you get unlimited vacation as long as giving us the correct notice, and it's not during an insanely important time period of the company, whatever. But people do have unlimited vacation, and we want people to go. We want people to travel, and so we realized that just as a company, within company leadership, we needed to, one, remind everybody of that, and then give everybody permission once again to leave, and telling them almost to leave, to go take a break. I think everybody was, which thankfully this was the case, but everybody was taking on so much ownership, and everybody is very emotionally invested in what we do, which I'm very grateful for that. But as you guys know, that can for sure lead to burnout. And again, one thing that we've been keeping a very close pulse on as a company is just our company morale scores. Every month we send out, there's a company called Culture Amp that helps us with it. You guys probably have heard of it. It's just a great survey company. And we've created a survey that goes out to all of our staff members, and it really helps us gauge, when leadership is getting something wrong, or when we have communicated something incorrectly, because those scores will slip a bit. And again, I've been a big believer that during this time, we gotta, as whatever company you're running, you gotta protect your brand, and you gotta protect the morale of your staff so that you can be poised and ready as soon as things go back to some resemblance of normal, because that's when we'll go make our money. But if we're falling apart during the midst of all this, we'll never be able to go capitalize on that. And so, yes, burnout has been a major issue. We haven't necessarily addressed it from, the hours people are working, but we have told people, leave, go on vacation, go somewhere. Make sure you try to stay safe on vacation, but, please just give yourself a chance to step away from all of the chaos.
Definitely. You kind of mentioned it, keeping the morale high and, keeping that sense of community, especially because, you've talked about your goal is to make work fun and you want that for your own team. And there's definitely a company culture around Common Desk. And I mean, I can even feel it interacting with your staff back when we were in office. How have you been keeping that up virtually? How do you as a CEO continue to keep morale high and continue to keep that company culture and that, that feel of Common Desk, of being a part of the Common Desk team without sitting next to each other, working on, the task for the day or being able to collaborate in that way?
Well, one good thing is that, our spaces are open again right now. And so we do have staff back into each one of our spaces. And so myself, as well as the rest of our leadership team, we've made it even that much more of a priority to make sure that we are rotating around, that we're getting FaceTime, with people. And again, kind of going back to that high touch point, one-on-ones, just making sure that the communication is at an all-time high. I'll say another thing that we've kind of discovered through all of this, which has been a big time net benefit that we'll continue on with, is that we're having regularly scheduled Zoom calls every week, which seems really simple, but we weren't doing those before. We used to do a all company quarterly meeting, and especially as the company is so spread out now, with different locations in different cities. The weekly Zoom calls have been impactful. Those are on Wednesdays, and they give us a chance for me or for somebody on our staff to deliver an important message or an important change or a shift or whatever it is that we're working on. And then on Friday afternoons, so we're doing one today at 4 p.m., we do a company happy hour on Zoom, which those are a lot of fun as well. And those are the point of that call is literally just to drink a beer and have fun with each other. And we make it a point not to talk about business on that call. And we just talk about our lives and how everybody is doing. And so the communication has had to go up to kind of compensate for the fact that we don't see each other in person quite as much.
Right. In that case, you did mention, Common Desk locations are opening, of course, with some safeguards in place. What percent, of tenants and workers, like what's kind of the, capacity at right now? Or I guess not the capacity, how many people are actually in there? How many people are actually utilizing this space and feeling comfortable to go back to work at this point, or at least in the office?
Yeah, that's a good question. About 2 weeks ago, we decided to actually start at 3 o'clock a day at every single location. Our staff members go around with like just a clicker to kind of see how many people are inside of our spaces. I can tell you this, that any of our urban locations, or really any location in Austin, is completely dead. I don't think I've seen either one of you guys at TCC recently, but if you were here, there's been about 8 of us that are here on a given basis. In fact, I was on a phone call with JP Morgan, the asset owner of Trammell Crow Center, a couple of days ago, and he was surprised that I'm coming into the office every day. And I was like, man, it's a 1.1 million square foot building. And I think there's like 10 of us here. Like everybody's got 100,000 square feet to themselves. I'm like,
yeah.
Crib parking in the parking garage because nobody cares.
Yeah.
There's plenty of room. So unfortunately, I call it fortunately or unfortunately, our spaces in the urban areas are, they're pretty vacated right now. And that is fine by us because again, we want to make sure that we have the offering here for the companies and the people that need it. And, but first and foremost, we want people to be safe, and so the funny thing is in our suburban locations, you would think that maybe we're not in the middle of a pandemic right now. The suburban locations are pretty busy, especially as you get deeper into the suburbs of Addison, Plano. And so I think our Plano location yesterday had over 50 people at that location during the 3 o'clock hour. And so, it seems like where case counts aren't quite as high, people are are already coming back to work a little bit more, and in the urban areas where it might be a little bit more dangerous, there's more risk associated with it. There's more liberals as our members. They're staying at home a bit more, and so it's really location specific.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. We did have one question from someone in the audience that I wanted to address. How do you recommend that smaller companies with limited staff make sure their employees are staying engaged but not getting burned out?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would go back to, we are a smaller company. So, it's especially now, unfortunately, we're not quite the size that we were even in January and February. But I would go back to say, like, high touch point, Zoom has been the best software for us to just see each other on a regular basis. Slack has been really impactful as well, and just constant communication. But just something that we try to do, and I think I just try to do as a human being, is just take plenty of time to hang out with your employees, even if it has to be virtually right now, and not talk about work. Just get to know them as human beings. And I really think that when people feel like that they are seen, when they are known, when they are heard, that they'll work a lot harder for you, and that burnout then doesn't happen quite as often. And so that's something that we've always tried to do, even before COVID. We don't always get it right, but I think when we are getting that right, it really does have an impact on the bottom line and on the productivity you're able to get out of your employees.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's so helpful. As we go into like the last 5 or 10 minutes, I'd love to just get some general advice that you're giving to other entrepreneurs during this time. What sorts of things are you learning? What sorts of things are most important to you? What sorts of things that are you sharing with people that are resonating with them, and they're like, oh yeah, I need to be thinking that way about keeping my business up and running and keeping my business growing during the pandemic, so that they don't just survive this, but they come out thriving as well.
Yeah. I would say a couple of things. You guys probably heard me talk. I like to talk a lot about my mistakes, and I try to do that intentionally, because I make a crap of mistakes, unfortunately. And I think that's just a part of entrepreneurship, and that needs to be a part of every entrepreneur's story. But especially with newer entrepreneurs, I think the mistakes really get them bogged down, and sometimes it can lead them to quitting. And I just always try to drive home the fact that mistakes are a part of the journey. Like, if you're not making mistakes, then you must not be trying hard enough, or you're not pressing the gas pedal down hard enough, because you are going to make those mistakes. And so I usually do lead with that. I also think during a time like this, cash is king. I think everybody got a little too obsessed with raising money as opposed to raising a business during this last cycle. And the answer was always that we could go out and raise more money. That's a little difficult now. And so anywhere where you can preserve cash, I think it really helps you to be more sustainable. And certainly I think investors in the future are going to be really sensitive to how you preserve cash and how you think about your balance sheet and the P&L as you're going back out to raise money. And then lastly, I would say, I think again, we've talked about this a little earlier, but the obstacle that is in front of us, which is COVID right now, will present the opportunity. And so, I would just encourage people to say, hey, if you're on an entrepreneurial journey and you're just getting started and you're thinking about hitting pause right now because this is a weird year, I think now is the time to go and get after it and go start something. Maybe you need to tweak what you were going to start a bit, but there's no reason to hit pause. I think it's an incredible time to go out and start something new. This is going to create an incredible amount of opportunities for everyone that sees it in that way. And if we even look back in the past, through the financial recession, the dot-com bust, going all the way back to the Great Recession or Great Depression, some of the most impactful companies of our time were all created during times of adversity and difficult years. And so that's it, and just keep showing up every day. I feel like at this point, we keep coming back to work.
Right.
That's so helpful, and I really appreciate that, and I hope everybody that's listening and will hear this will have the opportunity to take some of that to heart and really listen to that, because I think there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of scars that have come up with mistakes that have given you this insight and this perspective. I think it's always important to talk about our mistakes. It's always important to learn from our mistakes, not make the same ones. And I do agree that right now is probably one of the best times in my lifetime to start an organization. There's too much opportunity. There's too much unknown moving forward that we have to do, and we have to provide for that. People, now's the time to go. So thank you for being here. I want to take just a few minutes, Delanie, for you to talk a little bit about the upcoming Dallas Startup Week and what kind of changes have happened there. Some of the other programs that we have and are making available right now. We still have the Revive Dallas Small Business Relief Fund that is open. If you go to revivedallasfund.com, we're raising $5 million to give money to small businesses that need it. You can go to that site and find out information there. We also have the Fast Start Mentor Program, which is offering free mentor services to small businesses and entrepreneurs that need that. And so you can go and find that information out at the Revive Dallas Fund site as well. And then we've got some exciting news that have just come out about Dallas Startup Week, an event that happens once a year for a week that so many people, including Nick, has participated in over the years. Delanie, you want to give a quick update there before we sign off?
Yes, of course. Yes. Back when the pandemic first hit, we moved Dallas Startup Week to the week of August 30th to September 3rd, thinking that, we'd be more of in the semblance of normal. It has come that we're now in a state where the safest and best option for our community right now is to go completely virtual. Of course, we'd love to see everyone in person, but we want to continue to have that community, even if it's not in person. So we've dedicated to hosting the event virtually on a platform called Hopin.to, HOPIN.TO. And the registration went live today. So we will be hosting that all there. Every event, workshop, networking, panel, fireside chat, everything will be on that platform. So you get to register once and it's all there. We'll be having State of Entrepreneurship as we have for years. We're bringing back Disrupt Dallas, Women of Innovation, Corporate Startup Innovation Summit, all three of those summits that were launched last year in 2019. And then, of course, our tracks, our industry tracks, we'll still have throughout the week with plenty of sessions all around entrepreneurship, life after COVID, and all those sorts of topics that we'll be able to discuss and have that community still and have that education. So we're really excited to be taking it virtual and see everyone there, even though we can't physically be together anymore, or at least at this time.
No, I love this week because it's a big week for entrepreneurship across the region and getting to highlight entrepreneurs and their success stories and what they're learning, as well as the myriad of organizations that exist across North Texas that are helping entrepreneurs be successful. And then what we've seen in the recent years is really the incorporation of corporate companies and their employees to find innovative companies, technologies, and entrepreneurs that they can incorporate into what they're doing. Because as we know, as a corporation, it's so often so difficult to really innovate in a big environment like that. So thanks for sharing that. And you guys can see more of that and find out more information by following the DEC on Instagram or Twitter at the DEC TX, or find us on Facebook and LinkedIn at the DEC Network. Nick, thank you so much for being here. Just such a wealth of knowledge and information, and such a positive perspective and approach to the pandemic and the world that we're living in right now. We can look at this as something that we can't overcome, or we can look at this as, let's take the bull by the horns and let's make the best out of it. And you're definitely doing that at Common Desk. Thanks for being a friend, a partner, and being on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you guys for asking me to be here. It was fun. Always a good time.
Well, everybody have a great week, and we're going to take a hiatus for Fridays or for Founders for a few weeks as we prepare for the best version of Dallas Startup Week ever. And then we'll coming back then with more people that are just like Nick, who can come in and offer really great value and help you as you pursue your entrepreneurial endeavors. Have a great week, and thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you guys.